What's up, guys? In this video we're gonna make a quiz. This is based on a doc of CSP vocab that I was given at one of my CodeHS Zoom meetings, and you can see it's got the big idea 1, 2, and then 3 is the biggest one with all of the programming and algorithm terms. 4 is also pretty technical, and then 5 is a little more zoomed out, big picture stuff. And this is going to be A, a thing that we can use to practice these and learn, but also B, when I make this program, it's an example of something you might do on the create task. We have input, in this case a file of vocab, and then we do some work on it, reading, organizing, whatever, and then we have output, which in this case is the quiz. So I'm going to go Control A, Control C to select all and copy. And then this is just a blank sandbox project that I started a minute ago. We're going to go new file, maybe we'll call it vocab, and then I'm just going to paste it. And this loses all the formatting. We could actually read the Google Doc directly, but it's a little more work. They do it well with Sheets when you can read those, but not super well with docs. So right here we've got all the formatting lost, no worry about font size or whatever, but some of it is ugly with line breaks that are a little unpredictable, so we'll have to handle that. Now, we're going to open that. We're going to go with, open, vocab as F, and then let's just print f dot read lines, which is going to give us the lines. And yes, it's going to be a bit ugly, but we'll work on it. And this is a test not only of what it looks like, but just to make sure I don't have any errors or whatever. Okay, great. We'll see that it's been broken into a list, but it's kind of ugly and they have these new lines at the end, so we'll need to peel those off. So let's see what we got here. I'm going to say this has two parts. First, we have to treat the lines as a string, break them up into the word and the definition, etc. And then we have to ignore some of the lines. We have to make sure we don't count the ones that are just empty lines or whatever. And for each one of those, I'm going to make a little baby function. So I'm going to make a function called, I don't know, parse. That's usually what we call it when you take a line or a string of unstructured text and then you turn it into something a little more structured. So I'm going to go, okay, we're going to go line dot split on the colon because it was like word colon stuff. Should I do space? Is it always a space after a colon? Probably. Let's try that and nothing else, and let's just see what happens. So let's say vocab equals parse line for line in. This is list comprehension, one of the great things about Python. Let's see how that works. It might have an error, or it might have some that are a little bit off. Let's see. This one, we got a word, definition. Great. We still need to strip off that new line character. I bet some of them, however, are having a problem. And instead of looking at it by hand, I'm going to print the length of each one, because the length should be 2 exactly, but I bet it's not for some of them. So let's say for, I don't know, v in vocab, print len of v. And then, hey, there's some 1s in there, which means it's not splitting on a colon, at least not the way we think. So let's see what's going on here. I'm going to go if the len of v is not 2, print v. See what happens. So we have some that are just empty lines. Okay, that'll be easy to filter out. But then we have some, some have a dash instead of a colon. So this could be a chance to use some of our selection. We could say if there's a dash, we do one thing. But it's faster to just turn them into the same thing, to just say, hey, all the dashes we'll just replace with a colon. So I'm going to go replace, and then I'm going to go dash space for two reasons. One is that it's the equivalent of colon space, so I'm going to treat them the same. But also, what if there's a word that has a dash in the middle? You know, just like a regular compound word. I don't want to include that. So I'm going to turn those into these and then split. So let's run it and see that it should be a little bit different. Okay, now it's almost nothing but those empty lines, so those are easy. And then it's a few at the beginning that have just regular text with sentences or whatever. So how can we get those out of here? Well, let's make another little baby function that's like, I'm going to call it isVocab. So we'll take a line and we'll say yes or no, whether you're a qualifying line. Okay. So we could say line, which is like a Boolean, if we strip. Okay, line.strip to take off the new line. So this right on its own would get rid of most of them, but we need to say, hey, you know what? The strip should actually be applying to everybody. I guess that could be here. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll say, is there a colon or a dash? Or actually this is including something it shouldn't. We'll see in a second. Yeah, let's say dash inline or colon inline. And then, well, let me show you. I just realized this is including these, where it's like the categories, big idea, and we're not including those as vocab, like question answer thing. So let's say, and if big idea is not in there. So let's say, okay, and big idea not in line. And I believe we'll need some parentheses, but let's see. Okay, so this is printing nothing because we filtered out all the ones that were on screen where it said like new line with nothing or random sentence at the top. But did we accidentally include the ones that say big idea when we don't want those? Well, let's get this out of here. We know there should be one at the top. Can't grab it with my mouse. Maybe it's because I'm zoomed in a lot. Okay. Beautiful. So we've got all this. Yeah, it's a bit ugly. What we could do now is save this as a new file, as like the cleaned up version. But for now, it's okay. We'll keep it. So now let's say, okay, I'm going to make a main function. Put this guy in there. Call it, because we're about to organize, have a few things going. Let's say I want to make a dictionary. I want to make a dictionary that's like vocab to definition, or word to definition, you know? And I think the word for that is probably glossary. And guess what? Everything is ready to just be dictionaryfied, to just say dict vocab. And that's because it can take a list of tuples or a list of, I guess, anything that has two parts. And let me show you what I mean. So if we go print glossary, it's going to have like words as keys and definition. Ugh, beautiful. You can't see it very well, so let's go for print K V new line. So yeah, cookie is this, virus is this, phishing is this. Great. So now we're going to say, probably we should randomize these before we start, but at first we'll go with the order just so we can test it. And we're definitely going to randomize the choices. We want to make it multiple choice where it's like one right answer and 3 wrong answers. So let's have import random, and then let's make a function that's going to generate wrong answers. And it'll need to know the right one, probably. Let's see. These aren't K and V, these are word and definition. I can't shorten it to def because that's already a thing in Python. So for word definition in glossary.items, we're going to say take the right one and 3 wrong ones and put them together to make a list of choices. So I'm going to go choices equals definition plus 3 wrong. Boop. Boop. It needs to be a list if we're adding it to another list. And what is this going to do? Well, it needs the word and the glossary, I think, because we could just say pick 3 random values from the glossary, but then you might accidentally get the right answer mixed in. So we want to take the, should we take the, we'll see what happens. And then we'll display it. And then we'll actually shuffle it. Okay, so let's see what we've got here. I'm going to go, I'm going to call it wrongs equals glossary, no, random dot sample of glossary dot values 3. Let's try that, see if that works. Random dot sample is a function that says you give me a list or tuple or other sequence, and I will pull out a random amount, in this case 3. So let's see what happens. I don't know if they'll let us do that on the values. It might be, yeah, okay. So it's not correctly, I guess the way they do it behind the scenes is when you say sample, they probably choose indices. Like if you say, hey, give me 3 of these, they'll go, okay, what's the length? And then I choose an index between 0 and that, and then they do that 3 times. So probably this is not like indexable. What if we say, oh, also it wasn't even calling the dang function. Let's keep this back to where it was to test it properly. Okay, now it's doing the thing that I thought it was doing. Yeah, okay. So let's try that. Oh, we're making it do this for the whole thing, so it's hard to see one particular question. So I'm just going to go input, which will just freeze it after 1 until you hit enter. Okay, so this is 4 things, one of which is the right answer. But we don't know because we haven't shown like what the word is. Okay, so let's say print. Let's go word. And then this will be like, here's what we're working with for this particular question. Syntax error. Okay, yeah, and then it is one of these. And if we do it again, it's like logic error, and then it is one of these with 3 wrong ones. Great. Looks ugly, so let's make it prettier. So let's go, okay, for I choice in enumerate choices. So this will give them a number, and then we can enter a number like, oh, give me 3, whatever. Print I closing parentheses, or a colon, or a dot. Those are all things that might go in this kind of format. How about that? Okay, better, better. New line. Oof, we're getting there, right? It's looking good. Syntax error is probably 1 here, but we haven't checked that, so let's say, let's go index equals int input, and then if choices at index equals definition, print that's right, else print, ooh, nice try, maybe next time. Okay, and then we'll maybe freeze it again and say like hit enter to proceed to next question. And now you can say, okay, syntax error, is that probably, wait a minute, it put the right answer in there twice. You see that? This is what we were talking about. We have to make sure that when we get the random sample, we don't, you know, basically draw the one out of the deck that we already have in our hand. But let's say 2, because it is 2, and it says that's right, hit enter, cool, amazing. Let's go back up here and make sure that this is either redrawing, like, hey, I draw 3, and if the right one is in there, I just start over and draw 3. Or I could say that, like, oh, maybe I draw 4, and then I pick the first 3, and if the right one was in there, I toss that one and take the next. I don't know. I think it's probably easiest to just do a while loop, while like that's the right answer, then just do it again. And this is a bit wasteful since we're telling the computer to do the work twice of turning it into a list, even though we've already done that. But it'll work for the moment. And of course, a while loop is always dangerous because you could get stuck. So what this says is we draw 3, and if the right answer was in there, we just forget about it and draw 3 more. So the only time that could get stuck in an infinite loop is if the right answer is everything except 2. So like if we have the right answer a bunch of times, or if the whole thing is only 3 to choose from, then that would be a problem. But this file does not have that issue, and I can't imagine if you brought a file of vocab stuff that it would have that issue unless it's just really short. So let's try it now, and let's see if it doesn't show the same one twice. And it wouldn't have very often anyway, so testing it once is not the whole thing, but we're getting there. Now let's do the next one. Let's say, okay, syntax error is this guy, and it says that's right. Let's do the next one. Logic error is probably this guy, and it says that's right. Okay, so it's working for multiple ones. It's pretty ugly how they all kind of run together. So let's say I'm going to put a line break here, and then what we'd really love is to clear the screen so it only has the current question and we forget the last one. So we'll go import OS, and then right here we'll go os.system. This is like entering like terminal style commands. You can't do that much, but you can say clear. It would be CLS if it was on Windows, I think. This is Linux, presumably. So let's see what happens. We're gonna go, okay, this is like, well, let's get one wrong and make sure that that works as well. Hey, look at that. It clears the screen. Great. There's also a string that does that, like a magic string called an ANSI code. And I've used that in some of my other projects. You can see how that works. So this is great, but if you're doing this in real life, you probably don't want to see syntax error every time. You probably want a shuffle. So let's go. Not only are we shuffling the choices each time, but we're shuffling the vocab itself before it gets dictified. And then, hey, here's a new one. And so if you run it, you get a new one every time. Hey, here's a new one, right? And so you can see like, oh, we got that one wrong, but now we see a new thing we haven't seen before. That's nice. And finally, I do want to make it letters, because like the classic multiple choice is letters. It's not numbers. The numbers look weird. So also, by the way, it would blow up if we put a non-int in there because there's no validation. So let's do a bit of validation and display letters instead of numbers. So instead of enumerate, we're going to go with a cousin, which is called zip. Enumerate gives you the thing and a number. Zip gives you the thing and another thing, so you can zip it with whatever you want, which in this case, we're going to zip it with ABCD. So in here, we're going to have letter, and we're going to have letter. And I'm going to run it. I know it doesn't work yet, but we're going to see, hey, look, ABCD looks good. So now we're going to say, okay, when I ask you for an input, I'm going to ask you for A, B, C, or D, and then tell you to try again if it's not that, if it's something else. So let's go letter equals input. That's it, maybe. Sometimes you do the classic greater than. I don't know what you call this in this context, but there's like a little arrow pointing to where your cursor is, you know? And then we say, okay, index equals ABCD dot find that thing, which will give you the index if it was in there, which we're going to use in the next step, or if it wasn't, it'll give you -1. So we can say while index is -1, we're going to print invalid input, try again, and then we do this again. Let's try that, and then we might be ready to call it done. Let's go A. Oh, dang it. We need to accept lowercase. Come on. So I'm going to go dot upper and dot upper. So A. Yep. I didn't even look, but we happen to get lucky. Wrong. Okay. That one is too big. You can't even see the dang word because I'm zoomed in for the video. Everything's huge, but normally you'd have breathing room. This whole thing is less than 50 lines, and it's a great project for the kind of thing you might do on the create task. It has input, which is a file, but it could be another file, right? We could open another file that had vocab stuff with word:\def. It has loops, iteration. There's one right here. There's the ones inside of the comprehension, and there's this one right here for redrawing if we had the right answer in the wrongs. There's selection, which we've seen if a couple times, like here, and while is also selection. By the way, while has everything, right? You can do programs with nothing but while because it has the order of things and the branching and the repetition. And then it has abstraction. You could say, hey, I call this 3 wrong answers function and I don't care how it works, and I might even change how it works, but the main doesn't know and doesn't mind. So you could add more. Maybe it's got emojis that make it look prettier. Maybe it's got some better line break business because it's kind of hard to read with a paragraph style thing up here. Python has a thing called text wrap, I believe, that could do some work in that case. Or we could do a thing that keeps score. I think the best option for that would be to like keep note of the ones we got wrong, and then at the end say, hey, these are the ones you need to study, right? Because the ones you got right, you don't care about, but the ones you got wrong, it's like, hey, don't forget this. You give it a little extra shot. Or like some quiz games do, or Duolingo things do, is that if you get it wrong, it'll just put it back onto the end and ask you again at the end to see if you can take another shot at it. So many opportunities for editing, improving, testing, whatever. But even if you don't think of it in that way, you can just be a user of the program and get some practice with your vocab. Thanks.